Welcome back to The Price of Business. I'm your host, Kevin Price, talking to you about you and your business. It's been a while since we've had Marty Okner back on the program. Delighted to have him back on. It's been quite a while, in fact. Marty is a leader in the mid-market business industry, and we always delighted to get him on the program, talk about what's happening out there on the business front. And he is he's the president of the New York chapter, I guess is the proper term, of an organization called ACG, which is the Association for Corporate Growth. And he also has his own company, which he'll mention that as well. And he's got an interesting guest for us today, so I'm looking forward to it. Tell us a little bit about shmcnglobal.com, and then introduce your guest, Marty.
Sure. Well, thank you very much, Kevin. It's a pleasure to be on the show. I'm actually chairman of the New York chapter of ACG, and also I have an advisory and merchant banking firm, SHM Corporate Navigators, and basically what we do is we help companies in the middle market prepare for a sale or capital raise so they can realize the maximum value for that asset when they go to market. And it's really my great pleasure here to have Amber Landis, who is leading our public policy initiatives for the Association for Corporate Growth. Amber's with our ACG Global parent. And welcome to the show today, Amber.
Thank you so much. I'm pleasured to be here.
Kind of give us an overview of what you do there for ACG.
Sure, I'm happy to. So I am Vice President of Public Policy, and I've been with the Association for Corporate Growth for about 3 years. And really, the purpose of my role is to make sure that there is a voice for the middle market here in Washington, D.C. I'm actually delighted that we have actually opened a new office here in Washington, and so we have a full-time presence here, making sure that that voice is clear and consistent in Washington.
Marty, go ahead.
Great. So, Amber, it's great that we have this D.C. presence now, and it's already making an impact with the establishment of the National Caucus for the Middle Market. Can you talk through, we've got a very focused public policy agenda. Can you talk through some of the highlights from that agenda?
Sure, absolutely. And just to remind folks in the audience, ACG's mission is to drive middle market growth. So any time that we look at public policy, we look at it through the lens of our mission statement, driving middle market growth. And so ACG Global has put forth a legislative sort of agenda for the 114th Congress. So items that we're sort of focused on, and to make sure, again, for middle market growth, are issues such as preserving interest deductibility on corporate debt. We're also looking at how can we help middle market companies grow? Well, a lot of the ecosystem of ACG includes investors such as private equity. It also includes investment bankers, lenders. And so we are looking actively at what is the regulatory landscape and how can ACG help middle market investors with respect to growing companies, but also looking at how do they deal with the day-to-day compliance after the passage of Dodd-Frank. So another very key issue for ACG. In addition, based on some interesting activity in August, ACG is now becoming more engaged on an issue that I think would be near and dear to many hearts, is what's happening with the National Labor Relations Board. So in August, the National Board issued a highly anticipated decision in the Browning-Ferris Industries case. This is where the board decided that they would implement a new joint employer standard within the federal labor law, so the National Labor Relations Act. And the question before the National Labor Relations Board was whether Browning-Ferris was a joint employer with a staffing company called LeadPoint. And essentially what happened is that the NLRB said, yes, in fact, Browning-Ferris is a joint employer with LeadPoint. And so there's going to be a lot of interesting areas here where we're going to be focusing on to make sure that middle market is represented.
Let me ask you, what is the biggest challenge, do you think, that middle market companies have in being heard in D.C.?
I think the biggest challenge right now is that fundamentally congressional staff and regulators do not know about the middle market. They certainly understand that there's small businesses out there which are entrepreneurial and doing wonderful things for the economy, but the mid-market is sort of the backbone of the U.S. They employ millions of people, including 47 million workers. there's over 200,000 middle market companies, and they provide 1/3 of the U.S. GDP. But it's not always the sort of glamorous or what we sort of say the sexy sort of companies. These are companies that are helping with trucking and manufacturing. They're sort of the companies that you don't always maybe pay attention to. And so it's making sure that those companies get recognition when there's policy being considered and when there's policy being made. And so that's sort of the challenge when we're here in Washington, is having that dialogue with staff, kind of going to a 101 level with them, educating them about the middle market, and then educating them about the ACG ecosystem, which supports that important segment.
Yeah, go ahead, Marty.
So, Amber, I think what happened with the NLRB back in August is a great example of, why we need a voice in Washington. I mean, the real implications of that, and understanding from many franchisee owners, that we work with, the implication is if a Joint Employer Act goes into effect, essentially that parent, anybody who's 1099ing employees, now all of a sudden they're basically, gaining joint employer status, increasing their cost structures exponentially, right? So, I mean, can you give some examples? And I know that ACG is doing a lot to really inform, educate, and impact, the NLRB on the implications of this decision. Can you give us an example of some of how we're taking this grassroots message, into DC?
Sure. And so, the NLRB's decision basically puts any business-to-business relationship in jeopardy here. When you look at the dissenting opinion from the other two board members, really you're looking at potentially encompass virtually unlimited liability now for employers, and that includes middle market. And so ACG really wants to take, a leadership role in this. And so what we have done is we work with a coalition called a Coalition to Save Local Businesses. And it's a coalition here based in Washington, D.C. that is educating legislators and regulators about the impact of the new decision by the NLRB. There's been legislation introduced in both the House and Senate, which would reverse the NLRB's recent decision in August. And so ACG has a take action alert that we have sent to the ACG membership, but I would encourage anyone who's listening today to take action. As a business owner, this is an issue that's certainly going to be impacting you, and so you can do so at midmarketaction.org. Again, that website is www.midmarketaction.org, and folks can go there and send letters.
Hey, I'm sorry, Amber, you're really breaking up there near the end, but it was midmarketgrowthaction.org, and we literally ran out of time anyway. Midmarketgrowthaction.org. Marty Okner, Amber Landis, and they're both with ACG Global, and Marty is also with shmcnglobal.com. Thanks to both of you. All right, when we come back, much more for you. I do want to remind you, best content here shows up over there at usdailyreview.com, and this is The Price of Business.